Hi, you guys. It's Yaz. And today I'm going to talk about how does it end for the narcissist? What happens to the narcissist in the end? How do you think the narcissist is going to end up in life? Well, some people are fooled and they think, oh, the narcissist has this great life. They're living with the new supply. They look happy. They're posting on social media how happy they are. But what happens to the narcissist later on in life? How do they end up? All right. I'm going to talk about how the narcissist ends up in life. First of all, there's two ways a narcissist can go. The first way is that a narcissist could go along, jump from supply to supply to supply, never get married, and just have a multitude of different relationships, all right? Some narcissists never get married, and this is the way they live their life. It's all fun and games. They're just going from supply to supply to supply. Then you have the narcissist who wants it all, who could end up getting married, but still lives a secret life on the side that is still jumping around from supply to supply. But in the end, what happens to the narcissist? Well, in life, people that have lived life and have experience in life and see what goes on will tell you that people reap what they sow. What you put out there will come back and, hit you in the face, all right? When you spit in the wind, it's going to come back and hit you in the face, all right? My father used to tell us that years ago, and it's so true. How you live your life will have a great impact on how you end up, okay? So, for instance, if you're a reckless person, as we know narcissists are very reckless, a lot of them end up in a bad place. What does that mean? That means that if they're always on the go, reckless, they do things recklessly, they drive recklessly, they're all over the place, they could get into accidents. Things happen to them, all right? Things happen to the narcissist. So, they end up not in a good place, all right? What happens is a lot of times I'm going to give you all the aspects of what'll happen to the narcissist. First of all, their supply is going to diminish. As you get older, it gets harder. All right. Anybody that's older will tell you life doesn't get easier. It gets harder. Okay. Because you don't have the strength, number one, to do the things you used to be able to do. Okay. Because you're aging and you don't have the resources, which means like the looks. So narcissists, as they age, they start to panic because they're losing their looks and they'll be scrambling to try to stay young and try to get young supply and try to get supply, okay? And a lot of them won't be able to do that. A lot of them end up with whoever they have at the time. See, narcissists, they end up with who's ever around at the time when they can't get any other supply because, they need somebody. So they'll grasp onto whoever's around when they can't get other supply. And what they'll typically do is torture that person. And why will they torture that person? Because they're angry, they're bitter about how their life has gone. Narcissists don't take any kind of accountability for how their life goes. Instead, it's always somebody else's fault. If they're in a bad position in their life, they'll blame the people that were around them for why they're in the bad position of life, okay? They never take that accountability that they made bad choices. Another scenario of how it ends up for the narcissist is they could have multiple broken marriages, multiple kids all over the place, and in the end, nobody wants to be around them. Their kids don't want to know them because they remember how the narcissist was selfish and wasn't there for them. Okay, so later on, a lot of times narcissists that never really bothered with their children or abandoned their children, they all of a sudden they want to come back into their kids' life. And guess what? Those kids don't want them back because they remember how the narcissist was not there for them or selfish or toxic. So they lose that aspect. They have a bad track record from all these broken relationships, broken marriages. They've burned all these bridges. So many people that dealt with the narcissist no longer want to even give them the time of day, all right? So they're going to end up lonely. A lot of them end up lonely. Now, the caveat to that is this. It's very different if the narcissist has money. If the narcissist has money, there will always be people around, okay, that are after the narcissist's money. So they won't necessarily die alone because people are going to be, kissing up to the narcissist for their money, other narcissists, right? But in general, most narcissists, their circle of people will get smaller and smaller and smaller, okay? And the people that were the flying monkeys that were there because the narcissist did something for them, that's going to get smaller as well as the narcissist ages and can't do what they could do for them before. So the narcissist is going to get angry, they're going to get bitter, and they're going to blame who's ever around at the time, all right? People will end up leaving the narcissist, and a narcissist will have a narcissistic collapse where they feel like their whole life is falling apart because they don't have the high that they used to have from all the supply, okay? Imagine having all this supply, all these options, all this supply, and now as you get older, you don't have those things. All right, it's going to hurt and it's going to cause a narcissistic collapse. All right, no more supply will cause the narcissistic collapse. So what a narcissist will typically try to do in the end is they will reach out to exes. This may be a scenario where you hear from an ex after years of not talking to them. This is why I say it's never really over with the narcissist. They could come back at any time. So the narcissist may contact you after 5, 10, 15, 20 years, okay? I've had narcissists contact me over 10 years, all right? And when they do that, I automatically know that things aren't going well for them. For them to reach out to me after so many years, I know that they're not doing so well, all right? So what they'll do is they'll try to recycle their exes to try to, scramble and get any supply that they can get, all right? Because they become, in the end, the narcissist becomes desperate, all right? Now, the next scenario of how it ends for the narcissist. A lot of narcissists, and I've spoken about this in my older podcasts, will end up getting sick, okay? Not only will they make you sick, all right, from all the stress that they impose on you through all those years of toxic behaviors, how they have you walking on eggshells and they give you stress. But guess what? The narcissist gets stressed. They are a ball of stress. That's half the reason why they act the way they do is because they are filled with anxiety and depression. And what is that going to do to the narcissist? They're going to end up sick. Narcissists end up sick, all right? Every narcissist that I know has some sort of ailment going on, all right? Something. High blood pressure, sleep apnea, one of my exes has a rod in their leg from being reckless and slipping, all right? So all of the way they lived is going to build up in their body, all right? And they're going to get sick later on. Now, for all the people that want to come back and say, well, just everybody gets sick. No, not necessarily the way narcissists get sick, okay? Narcissists a lot of times get sick earlier than the average person because of the abuse they put on their bodies. You've got to understand something. Narcissists are always on the go. They're juggling supply. So they might be with one supply all day, then they'll be with another supply at night, and they're getting very little sleep and they're not resting much. This is why they're napping on your couch and snoring and all of this, because they are so exhausted from trying to get all of this excitement of supply. And what do you think that's going to do to their body? That's going to destroy their body. Their immunity, their immune system is going to break down, all right? Because everybody needs sleep in order to heal, and narcissists don't get enough of it, believe it or not. And so therefore, that, along with the high level of anxiety and depression, will also have wear and tear on their body where they're never, ever stopping, okay? They're never, ever stopping, and they're going to end up just getting sick. So you could expect that all of these narcissists, it's going to catch up with them. And it does catch up with them. And I've seen it catch up with them. I've seen young people get heart attacks, strokes that shouldn't have gotten them. All right. Narcissistic people get that. Now, like I said before, it doesn't necessarily mean because somebody gets a heart attack or a stroke and they're young that they're a narcissist. I always have to put this out there because so many people take things the wrong way. We're talking about narcissistic people and the cause of why they get sick. All right. They've gotten sick because they've abused their bodies. They've abused other people. They get STDs. All right. That gets them sick as well because they sleeping around with multiple partners. Now, another thing of how the narcissist will end up. A lot of them end up in jail, all right? A lot of them end up in jail because a lot of them are thieves. And down the road, the longer you're in it, the longer you're in the game, the higher the probability that they will get caught and they end up in jail. Yes, a lot of narcissists end up in jail, all right? Let's just, not to put this out here, let's talk about, Epstein and how, he ended up in jail and committed suicide, all right? And he's one of thousands of people, of narcissistic people that end up in a bad way. They end up in jail. The other thing that happens to them is a lot of them become suicidal. They become suicidal because they have a narcissistic collapse where they're losing control and they feel there's nothing to live for. So a lot of them, a narcissist that's having a narcissistic collapse and has nothing, okay, it could be a very dangerous situation if you're dealing with a malignant narcissist, because not only could they be suicidal and take themselves down, but they could take you down as well. And this happened to a friend of mine where her boyfriend was having a narcissistic collapse because she left him, and he went and he shot her and then shot himself, okay, because he couldn't handle the loss of control. And this is where it could be very, very dangerous, where a narcissist could take you down as well, where they could be suicidal. So you have to be very careful and stay away from these people, all right? They have to be the one to go get themselves help. You are not going to be able to save these people. The other thing, too, is, narcissists will also, they burn a lot of bridges, and a lot of people will come after them. They will create enemies that will come after them, all right? And that, coincides with what I'm saying. They could end up in jail because people could call the authorities on them, get them locked up for things, have to go to court, have to pay retribution. Eventually they have to pay the price because certain people may come after them and want them to take accountability and may take them to court, all right? Or they may have to take accountability in other ways because they could be dealing with another narcissist who's after them. And this does happen. This does happen where narcissists get entangled with another narcissist. They cause a narcissistic injury, and that narcissist could be a violent or malignant narcissist and comes after them, all right? So they could be looking over their shoulder down the road because they've hurt so many people. This is why narcissists are incredibly, especially malignant narcissists, they're incredibly paranoid. They always feel like somebody's out to get them. Well, yeah, they feel that way because they've done so many people dirty, all right? They've done so many people dirty that they're afraid that one day one of these people is going to come after them, all right? So they blame the world and everyone else. They're paranoid, they're bitter, they're angry. Some of them end up suicidal. Some of them get wrapped up in their addictions. They start drinking more, start popping pills more to try to numb themselves out because they can't deal with not being important, not, having relevance in the world, falling apart. This could be a lot of celebrities as well, you guys. If you look at the history of what happens to certain big celebrities, right? A lot of them don't end up well. They have narcissistic collapses and they end up, killing themselves with drugs or alcohol. They trying to numb themselves out because they're losing the fame and all the popularity that they had. And a lot of them suffer because of it. And that's why they kill themselves with, alcohol and drugs. They in the end, they fall to their addictions and are doing their addictions to numb themselves out. All right. So they'll be doing more things, like I said, drugs and alcohol to try to make themselves feel better and numb themselves out. So this is what happens in the end to a narcissist, you guys. I'm just looking at my list because I made this massive list last night when I was thinking about this of all the things that happen in the end for a narcissist. Like I said, they'll burn bridges, they'll get sick, they end up in jail, they end up suicidal. They also keep striving to look good and try to look young, okay? They're trying to fight that clock, father time and everything. Their children, a lot of their children don't want to be bothered with them unless they have money. They blame everybody. And they reap what they sow. That's what happens. They reap what they sow, okay? Because they didn't nourish the foundation of their life, and that tree of life, they didn't nourish that tree of life. And so they end up, broken in the end. See, in life, you have to make the right decisions to end up in a better place. This is what a lot of young people don't realize. You wouldn't know this unless you lived a lot of life, you guys, all right? Because you will realize that the decisions you make in your life will have a great impact on you later on in life. It will depend how you end up, who's around you, what you have in your life. Do you have that foundation? Okay. Do you have that foundation? That's very, very important. I remember years ago, my father used to tell me, you need to get your roots in the ground. Okay. You need to get your roots in the ground because at the time I was very young. I was living, in the city, and he felt like I needed to get my roots in the ground and everything like that, and start building a foundation. And that's so important because that foundation will be your stronghold later on. That foundation will be your stronghold later on. And that's something that the narcissist won't have generally. They won't have that strong foundation of, let's say, a strong family. I'm just going to use this as an example. They won't have a strong family. They're going to have a broken family, all right? They're going to have people that aren't talking to them. They're going to have people that are angry and bitter at them. They're going to be alone. Most of them are going to be alone, all right? Unless they have money, then there'll always be people, kissing up to them for their money. But it won't be love. People won't be with them because they like them or love them. It's because they want something out of them. So, nobody is going to want to be around the narcissist. And they're going to get older. They're going to get lonelier. They're going to get sicker. A lot of them get in accidents because they're reckless. They may be drinking a lot. A lot of them are reckless, get into accidents, car accidents, other kinds of accidents. I had an ex who was reckless, slipped on ice, and now has a rod in his leg, okay? And one of my friends said to me at the time, she said, "Oh, Scrooge got his. Scrooge got his." All right. She was telling me. And it was like, it was the biggest karma ever because this person was so wicked, so malicious, a real malignant, psychopathic person. Really was a psychopath. All right. And it was funny how it was kind of like he got back what he gave because he was a reckless person. All right. He got his back. So I am a firm believer that in the end, the narcissist gets back what they give, and people start to see what the narcissist is, and they don't want to bother with them. Or some people may want revenge from the narcissist, and they may have to pay the piper down the road because some people may come after them for accountability, like I said before, and try to take them to court and hold them accountable, or can come after them in other ways, all right? So I hope that helps you. If it does, hit the subscribe button, share the video, spread the awareness. If you're looking for confidential one-on-one phone coaching, check out the link in the bio. I have limited time, you guys, because I've been working on another project. All my reels and videos, you can find them on TikTok, on YouTube. Well, most of them are on TikTok too, but on YouTube, I lay it all down on YouTube. Almost 7,000 videos, over 7,000 videos on YouTube at the Game Exposed podcast, where I talk about everything, about narcissism, discard, covert narcissist, triangulation, how they control you, all their manipulation tactics. It's all on my YouTube at the Game Exposed podcast. Facebook, Instagram is the Game EXP123, and TikTok is the Game Exposed. And have a great day.